Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Good afternoon and evening, everyone. We are going to forego the Kanar this time. Instead, break out the Romulan ale because guess who's coming to dinner? Yes, for those who haven't been paying attention, we are going to be talking about the way to properly end an era in a TV and movie franchise. We are talking about Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And, Blake, how screenshot happy did you go this time? I think
522.
I think you broke your record for the last time.
Yep.
So,
Give me just 1 second, Jared. I have one of them. God damn it. Somewhere I have us up in the background, and I can't find it. There it is. There it is.
Oh, so you had your own echo going on.
Oh, yeah, I had all of us echoing, and it was just never ending. Okay, we're good.
Oh, all right. So we are going to go through this. And now this one is a special case for me. And some of you assholes on the panel thought that this was going to be an easy show for you. Fuck that noise. So, for those who don't know, I've actually had a soft spot for this movie because it's 1A in my ranking of Star Trek movies of all time. Part of it is the storyline itself. Another part of it is the visual presentation. And another part of it is the overall story. And when I actually, a few years back, went and did a deeper analysis of it and put it in context of when the movie was written, filmed, and released, holy shit, were there a lot of parallels, which kind of gives reason for the title of today's show. Yes, Star Trek has been political for a long time. So does anyone want to take a guess on when this movie was actually released? I'll even just take the year.
Okay, so...
Are we included in this, or are you asking the audience?
Both.
Well, I know when it came out, so...
I don't think it was 90. It was later than 91.
Nope.
So I graduated high school in 96. It was not later than 91?
It was 91.
December 91 is when it had its theatrical release.
God. Okay. So it hit my hometown.
Star Trek 7 was 94.
Yeah, it hit my hometown like a year later because I'm from a town of 1,400 people, and we had a theater that ran one movie a weekend for 2 days. And the reason I remember that for this movie is because it came out around the same time as Hook. And the closing line of this, the next week in our theater, was Hook. So it was like a perfect lead-in to the Peter Pan story.
Yeah, and not just that, the way they decided to end it with that really is because, for those who don't know, this is the last movie for the original crew of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, other characters did pop up a few times later, where you have Spock and Kirk show up elsewhere, but for the crew as a whole, for the end of their run as the characters, this was it. This is their swan song. This is them passing off the torch. And it, in my opinion, this is right up there in the gold standard of how to keep a franchise going and pass it off between generations, which unfortunately that's what they named the next movie and kind of screwed the pooch. With that, let's go ahead and start going through all of this. So, for those who don't know, 91, we have a parallel. We have the Berlin Wall coming down and the demise of the Soviet Union beginning. And
Well, I'm not sure if you're making this clear. The Berlin Wall came down 2 years earlier.
it not immediate linear, it wasn't same year, but it was that parallel between the events that happened in our reality and a portrayal, an analog in the Star Trek universe. Because
Yeah, it just sounded weird. It sounded like you thought that the Berlin Wall came down in 91.
No,
Okay.
but it was
just correcting that
the
error there.
the taking down of the Berlin Wall and that collapse of the Soviet Union that ended up following it. There, as an analog here in Star Trek VI, they're using this opening moment, this opening shot right after the opening credits as a parallel, where we have this wonderfully bright explosion.
This is one of the greatest openings of movies for me. This is one of the movies that I use to test a new sound system and just crank it to 11 and see if your system can handle it. I love this opening. So
go ahead.
We here we're back to the screenshots. Are we presenting to everyone?
Yes.
All
Okay.
522 of them.
We can whip through them. And now on to slide number 2. Here is one of the few criticisms that I have for this movie, and it is the shape of the explosion, the perfect disc-like accretion disc, and how fast did that travel across space to hit the Excelsior? But so we have music intro, really dramatic, then it goes silent, and epic explosion. And then we go to Captain Sulu sipping his coffee on the bridge of his ship, the Excelsior. And apparently its warp drives are actually working this time.
Have been for a little bit of a time. And notice, there has been a change. Last we saw the Excelsior, the registration number was still listed as NX 2000. Go back to second one before. It has now fully been registered as NCC 2000.
Okay. So we have Captain Sulu doing his captain's log and then talking to other people on the ship. I love the iPad.
Little bulky, but it needs to be in a shockproof case because his cup of tea falls.
So something's coming, shaking, and they get hit by this wave that defies the laws of physics, but I'll leave that behind and not judge.
And
everyone goes down.
And hey, look, it's Rand. Top right.
Yep, Yeoman Rand. Yep.
I think Lieutenant now.
So we get through the wave, trying to figure out what it is, and they center on Praxis, the Klingon moon.
So they traced it to the location by propagation of the wave. Okay, so it began in Kronos. Specifically, it seems like the moon. And Baltine says, I can confirm the location of Praxis, but not the existence of Praxis. And that's when they use their sensors to actually amplify the image, and this is what they find. Now, please tell me you captured how much of it was missing.
No, I did not get the shell around it. I missed that one.
Oh.
But you can see the 3/4 of this thing is gone.
In terms of volume, that's 80% loss.
Yep,
I'd say. So yeah, somebody obviously goofed up a little bit there.
It's an industrial accident.
I'd say so.
Was OSHA on this?
No, that's a completely normal phenomenon. Nothing to worry about.
Sounds like an OSHA excuse.
Well, so Sulu reaches out, tries to contact the Klingon High Command, and this is the first sets of images they get. Footage from Praxis itself.
And another thing, this is the biggest part of the movie that I'm going to be nitpicky about because it's just frustrating, but it establishes the plot line. If a moon of Kronos did that, I don't think anybody on Kronos would have survived. There is no way anything in near proximity to it would have been able to survive if the wave was that intense when it hit the Excelsior.
However, this actually goes back to the shape of the wave. If the explosive force was focused to create those twin disks, and if Kronos was on either side of it and missed, they would have atmospheric conditions to worry about and changes, but not necessarily a destructive blow.
I
Also,
can
they
see
could
that.
have a bubble around it like Druidia.
But I will still stick to that this does not create this.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah.
And then immediately after we have the chaos on Kronos, we receive a direct message from the Klingon High Council. There's been an incident. We don't need any help.
Sounds very familiar. Very,
So-
very 1983 familiar.
86.
Was it
86?
86? Yeah.
86.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Brigadier
Brigadier
Carl.
Kogler.
Brigadier Kogler speaking for the High Command. There has been an incident on Paraxis. However, everything is under control. That sounds familiar. We have no need for assistance. Obey treaty stipulations and remain outside the neutral zone. This transmission ends now. And then an incident, and Rand asked, "Do we report this?
Are you kidding?
Are you kidding?" And then we come back to Earth. You want to take it, Jared?
Yep. So now we get a wonderful shot of Starfleet Command right by the Golden Gate Bridge. Oh,
How old would it be at this point?
oh, the bridge
400,
itself. Yeah.
450 years, approximately. It was built in the 30s, I think.
That's one hell of a bridge.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do with fantastic engineering. And now,
We have a bridge over here that's literally 2,000 years old, built by the Romans, still
Yeah.
working without any modifications.
yeah, exactly. Now, what isn't exactly expressed is how much time has elapsed from the report from Sulu to this meeting here. It's actually been a few weeks. If
No, it's
not
been more than
over a
that.
month, over a couple months max.
Give me 1 second. I've got the script up, and I think it's 4 months ago.
Was it that?
I can
No, it was
Yes.
between a couple weeks to
Two months,
a couple months.
2 months.
2 months. Yeah. Yeah, I thought 2 months was the tops. At which
Yeah.
point, it's a briefing of the Enterprise command staff and the Admiralty of Starfleet, to which the question is, why are we here, is brought up as they're walking in.
And
McCoy comments, well, maybe they're throwing us a retirement party. To which Scotty, suits me. I just bought a boot.
I just got.
But then we come to find out they invite the special envoy to the Klingons, who happens to be future Ambassador Spock.
Good morning. 2 months ago, a Federation starship monitored an explosion on the Klingon moon Paraxis. We believe it was caused by overmining and insufficient safety measures. Really? The moon's decimation means deadly pollution of their ozone. They will have depleted their oxygen in approximately 50 Earth years. So then we have the discussion of what do we do. The Klingons have such a large military budget that they're not able to handle a environmental crisis such as this, and the Federation has decided that they are going to come to the rescue to help save the Klingons.
Again, sounds familiar. To which Cartwright pipes up, in being a typical military man of mindset in this aspect, is, let's wait them out. Let's bring them to their knees. Then we'll be in a far better place to dictate terms.
Yeah, and he adds to that if we do let them in, they will become the alien trash of the galaxy. And they've decided that Kirk will be the first olive branch to the Klingons to end the 70 years of hostility. And that is the look on Kirk's face when Spock spoke for him personally and vouched for the crew that they would do this mission.
Yeah, that's the look of holy fuck. Why?
You did what?
Seriously?
Yeah, it's very much. Wait, you did what?
Spock just pulled the Blue Falcon.
Yes, and very quickly, Starfleet Command is saying, nope, that's what it is. Go meet up with the Chancellor, escort him to Earth so we can have these peace talks. To which Kirk is still flabbergasted. You personally vouched?
And then Spock makes the comment that there is an old Klingon proverb that only Nixon could go to China. So Kirk is the only one who can go to Kronos, and he responds after the room is cleared, they're animals. Don't believe them. Don't trust them. Let them die.
Which, again, goes to a very generational type of thinking when looking at someone who has been an adversary for your entire life and even longer. And now things are changing. Things are changing dramatically and quickly.
And then I think Spock is actually taken aback by Kirk's comment of let them die.
Well, exactly, because even though Spock is half human, he's, especially since the retraining of his mind that began at the end of Star Trek 3, he has been very Vulcan in the base thinking, very logical, very pragmatic in why go to that extreme with them? Why be that callous? It is a perplexing view, especially from someone who has in history of dealing with other cultures to this point actually been very enlightened and very forgiving.
Yeah, but he suffered a pretty much factory reset.
Yes.
So
Having
hard
your
to tell how much of his original personality and his wisdom from dealing with different cultures actually survived being transferred into bones and back.
well, not just Spock dealing with the reset. We're going to be touching on the reset that Kirk experienced too. So, of course, after this meeting, we get the shuttling of the command crew of the Enterprise up to Earth Space Dock, which that thing is still around in Star Trek Online in the 25th century.
It's one hell of a space. You're not going to scuttle something that big. You've got to build it to last or continuous and nonstop repairs.
Think about how drastically the dimensions of the ships that it's supporting have changed since.
But have they? Because if certain dimensions are going to stay the same based upon the framework of how you're building them and where they travel, it's kind of similar to the reason why ships nowadays, I can't remember if it's 73 feet wide or 173 feet wide.
You're talking about canals.
Yep.
Yes, and the reason for that is if they're any wider, they can't go through the Panama Canal. So I would imagine if you're going to build something like this, or even the size of the shipyards, that's going to restrict how big you build, and that's stipulation 1: new ship can't be bigger than X.
Well, keep in mind, at this point, we have TNG on air, and we actually have footage of the Enterprise D entering Space Dock 1. And
Well, maybe they just replaced the doors.
Or there might be different bays. I mean, there might be, the small shuttle bay, the medium ship bay, the large ship bay.
could be. But going on, we then, of course, get introduced to
The original Cirque.
No,
Or not Cirque. Well,
we get introduced to Vulcan Replacement 2.0.
The original Savick is what I meant.
Yeah.
I totally lost.
Initially was planned to be Savick. However, when they were in negotiations with the actress here, Kim Cattrall, she said flat out, "No, I am not reprising the role of Savick. If I'm to play a character, it is a new character."
What was the reason for that?
She wanted to make the character herself and not be seen as just filling someone else's shoes. Because keep in mind,
yeah.
Robin Curtis was actually the second actress to play Savick. It was initially it was initially Kirstie Alley.
Yep.
But there were off-screen issues between 2 and 3 that ended up having that recasting take place.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
I do love the entry onto the bridge here when Spock first recognizes Valeris, and his comment is, "It is agreeable to see you again." Like, that's the most Vulcan hello ever.
The most Vulcan emotional greeting.
Yes.
Don't say the Vulcan hello. That's still, still disturbing.
And
Don't remind me of that episode, please.
And then, of course, Valeris pulls a Savick when Kirk does his typical 1/4 impulse command out of space dock. And the young helmsman never learn.
Captain, may I remind you that regulations specify thrusters only while in space dock.
then you get the eyebrow arch from Spock.
And we fly out at 1/4 impulse.
Which, nice visual montage. I mean, that is one thing that really got me with this movie in particular, is how much cleaner the visual effects for the ships specifically are throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is still held up all these years later. Here we are, almost 30 years after this movie was released.
And I'm not expecting much more than this. I mean, if they released this today, these are the visuals that I would be absolutely happy with.
Yeah. So now we get Kirk talking to his personal log after getting settled in and leaving space dock, to where he reminds everyone why his feelings towards the Klingons have ended up becoming so strong. Never trusted Klingons, and I never will. I'll never forgive them for the death of my boy. Because, for those who may not remember or may have missed it, in Star Trek 3, towards the end of the movie, the Klingons killed one of their 3 hostages, the 3 hostages being the mindless Spock, Savick, and David, Kirk's son, who he had just found out about and met the movie prior.
He hadn't just found out about him. I'm pretty sure they knew of each other, and I know Kirk did. He just was completely absent and was not a part of his life. It very disconnected. I'm looking at the emotional connection side of it. Kirk didn't start to have that real emotional bond, and it hit him that this is my son. Until in the catacombs in Star Trek 2. And then shortly thereafter, we're talking less than a year after this reunion and them actually being able to build a bond together mutually, the incident... Doc Brown orders him to be killed.
Yep.
Great Scott.
And still has the picture around. Now, through all of this, it lays out what he's been ordered to escort the Chancellor. Doesn't like it, doesn't agree to it, but it's the mission I've been given. It's the last mission that this crew is going to take. It's what I'm going to do.
And Kirk kind of lays out, I think, they really lay out the framework of how this is going to end and the mentality of the characters. Because even in the last line of his log, but how on earth can history get past people like me? He recognizes that he's becoming a dinosaur.
Yeah, he sees the end of his usefulness to the society that he has dedicated his entire life to at this point. At which point, Valeris...
which, again, laying the framework really well if you're paying attention, because this is a murder mystery movie.
Ends up being so, but you don't think of it as being one at first. And again, another wonderful hero shot done by ILM, which, as a little side note, on the DVD release, the special features are the teaser trailer and theatrical trailer. For those who don't have access to it and want to see it, come to the Discord server after the show, after I have a chance to have dinner. I'm going to play both of those, and you might just be surprised by the sound effects that are used.
Really?
Yes, it's comical. So we get as they're making their way to the rendezvous, we get this Vulcanly touching interaction between Spock and Valeris, where even Spock recognizes this is his last voyage aboard any Starfleet vessel, but specifically the Enterprise, as a part of her crew. So even he recognizes that this chapter of his immensely long life is coming to an end.
And Valeris comments about the painting, asks him what it is, and that it's a painting of the expulsion from paradise. And she asks him why he keeps it. And he says, as a reminder that all things end.
You know, I never noticed how fucking ugly that painting actually is.
You really feel the undertones of coming to an end throughout the entire movie.
An end for individuals, but a continuation for everything else.
Yep.
And that is a lot of the conflict that goes on, is things are going to keep going, but certain people's involvement in them are coming to an end, and they know it. And how are they going to handle it? And here we have Spock trying to handle it as any Vulcan would. I see you as my successor and taking my place in the situation aboard the ship. Little does he know that's not exactly going to work.
Yeah. And Spock points out that we're at a turning point in history, and that we must have faith that things will happen as they should. And she asks him, is that logical? And Spock's response is that logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. So we see a little bit of an insight into Spock as well, that the human side really does come out when it needs to.
And here we go with the arrival of the Klingon Chancellor.
Dramatic music.
Yeah.
Da.
At least
the music in this is great.
It really is. It really was a touch of how music would amplify the importance and gravity of a scene without overpowering it.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's a direct line from my paper.
Raise shields, Captain.
Never been this close before.
One thing that kind of stuck out at me on this scene, as they're commenting back and forth, Kirk shows his bias and presents his hand a little bit when he says that we have been ordered to escort you to Federation territory. Not that, we're here to escort you. It was very blatant. I was told to do this.
Very subtle, very, very much a bit of nuance where many people wouldn't recognize the difference, but for someone who actually, aside from being a starship captain, part of it with the 5-year missions is being a diplomat, Kirk knows how to say that better. He knows. He knows there is a better way to deliver that greeting, that opening, and yet he still chose that verbiage.
Mm-hmm. And who's gonna say it?
Well, before that, so through the dialogue, they have their back and forth, they have that icy yet diplomatic exchange of pleasantries, to which Kirk decides, well, why don't we invite you and your staff over for dinner this evening with my senior staff, which is a very typical diplomatic opening in Olive Branch. At which Gorkon agrees, and the time is set, at which point Kirk takes his leave of the bridge, and on his way by, Chekhov, guess who's coming to dinner?
Well, don't forget, Valeris also recommends that the ship does have a supply of Romulan ale.
Not quite there, because Chekhov says that first, at which point...
Nope, backwards. It's the other way.
Oh,
Valeris
so
says it first.
You didn't get Kirk walking by Spock then? Because...
No, I didn't.
Because that was a perfect one, because Spock, as he walks by, very snidely says, I hope you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
At which Valeris stops Kirk when he's right into the turbo lift, saying, well, there is a supply of Romulan ale aboard. Which Kirk, being the captain, was, I was just thinking that. Yes.
No. His comment, officer thinking, Lieutenant.
Yeah. And so we get that bit of, I'm not happy, I'm going to do it. Hey, let's break out the alcohol, because what would make this sort of tension-filled evening even better but a little bit of liquid truth.
And then we have the transport in. And I still don't grasp this across the Star Trek universe. Why do we transport pad to pad when so often we don't? Just why?
In this case, ship to ship, pad to pad, provides double redundancy for the pattern buffers.
And I can see for an entrance like this, because it needs to be a formal entrance, you're not just going to beam them in somewhere random. But this will come into play later, that during the next big scene, they transport onto the pad as well. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't they have just transported straight to where they want to go? But we'll get to that. And dude with the weird little flute that he plays before the transporter kicks on?
Not a flute, it's a bosun pipe.
So they've stuck with some Navy traditions?
Yes. Piping aboard a visitor is a very, very common occurrence.
Oh God, what are the sailors that are lined up on the gangplank of the boat as visitors come in? Something boys.
Side boys.
Side boys. Yeah.
A duty I've never had to perform.
Every time I've had an official visit, they've ordered no side boys because they don't want to seem that pretentious.
At this, we get the arrival of the party, and we get the typical grandiose pan up of the full view of our...
I want to know what that's a bone from.
A Targ.
And if he killed
that bone is way too big for a Targ.
Some Targs, a full-grown Targ, actually would get pretty big, if I remember correctly.
Well, they were always presented as being about maybe a meter tall. And if that's one solid bone, like maybe the femur or something, that thing would be at least twice the size. So I don't think that's a Targ.
So we have the entrance of the official delegation. And then military commander to military commander.
Chief of Staff. So, Brigadier Curdler there, to the right, is the actual military advisor. General Chang was his chief of staff.
Yes, for this event, he's the chief of staff, but he has a history as a warrior.
Well,
yep.
He's a freaking Klingon in high office. Of course he's a warrior.
Yeah, and he even says it from one warrior to another.
Right.
And you got to admit, that's a badass eye patch, because that's a painful way to have it attached.
His Klingon way, just bolt it in. Now, with Kirk said he wasn't sure how to respond to that, or what to make of it. Which even Brigadier Curdler was like, sincere admiration, of course. It's like, yeah, no. Not there's a little bit of admiration, but not much. It's more the Klingons held Kirk in such esteem as an adversary that all of them who wanted to make a name for themselves, who did they really want to go after? Who did they really want to take down?
Yeah, every Klingon wanted to go to battle with Kirk.
And then
So then we have some more foreshadowing. Have our two crewmen that are making comments about how much the Klingons smell, and it's only the high-class ones that can even speak. And they get caught by Valeris, and her one comment, you men have work. Snap to it. And there's our good old Romulan ale. And I found this entertaining, as all of the Klingons are confused by the cutlery.
Yes.
Yes,
they did that well.
That's a reoccurring motive in Star Trek, that the Klingons don't know how to use cutlery. At least not human ones. Also the napkins and shit, they just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It very much does show that cultural difference and that duality where Starfleet is presenting themselves as prim, proper, enlightened, advanced, whereas there are a lot of aspects to Klingon society that, by comparison, some would see it as still barbaric, childish, brash, rude, and it just plays off of that. And also the analysis of how Russia and the Soviet Union and communists in general were portrayed by the American and Western media in a similar vein.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the quote by, I think, Kern? Yeah, it must have been Kern, Worf's brother, when he was invited to dinner on the Enterprise D?
Not the exact verbiage, but I do recall the episode.
How long has this bird been dead?
Yes, because they prefer it fresh and wriggling if possible.
ML2 has a question. Why are the Starfleet uniforms so different in this movie?
Well, so in this, you still have the foundation of the Klingon uniform that we have seen throughout. However, the characters you're seeing here, you have the Chancellor of the High Council there.
Well, he's asking about the Starfleet uniforms.
Oh, Starfleet? Oh,
Starfleet. These are pretty consistent with...
So
I think what the confusion is these are you're used to seeing the officer ones. The side boy and his companion are wearing more
the crewman
uniforms, the enlisted uniforms.
Yes, that's something they actually didn't continue on with TNG, where so here in this era of Trek, you have the officers in the red tunic top and black pants, whereas your crewmen were in more of a utility jumpsuit type. Go back. It's going to be a few more back. There. For the movie era of the original crew, you have that change. Also, if you notice, their badges are only the roundel with the delta. Whereas if we go back to the current image, you see the Starfleet insignia for the officers has the bar behind it. It is keeping with tradition of the current, at least U.S. military on the Navy side, of that clear line in just uniforms between your officer ranks and your enlisted. Senior enlisted and warrant officers are in that gray area where they have a similar uniform to the commissioned officers, but not exactly the same amount of authority.
So for this scene, we start getting toasts back and forth.
And
Gorkin
a lot
offers
of
a toast.
Shakespeare quotes.
So much. This entire movie is Shakespeare, which kind of motivates me to read some more Shakespeare. Gorkin starts with a toast to the undiscovered country, the future, and we get the title of the movie.
Roll credits.
There's still more fun to go, and going through, it actually ends up sparking quite the back and forth between Kirk and Chang, where one of the quotes that Chang starts off with, he starts off citing it in Klingon. Tak ba, tak beh, which he does repeat later in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But when he says that, they give a shot of Scotty, Chekhov, and being taken aback of, and Uhura should have known what he said, but whether or not the meaning behind it sunk in, you have the direct translation really is to be or not to be, which Chang brings up later, shortly thereafter, saying that is the question which precedes us right now. That is the question facing every Klingon right now. To be or not to be, to continue living or fight to the death against the changes that are taking place. Not exactly what he said, but that's the message he was hinting at. And amongst this, you get a little dose of levity in it with Uhura here asking one of the other Klingons, "Are you fond of Shakespeare?"
Yeah, I'm betting a paycheck that this guy has no idea who Shakespeare is.
I'd have to agree with you. And
Also, I must say that those blue noodles look absolutely delicious.
I'm willing to try new things every now and then. You have this weird, combative, but not meant to be combative situation going on. Especially with McCoy recognizing and actually offering his own response toast to Gorkin directly, hailing him as one of the ambassadors of this new future. And as the discussion ends up going on, table-wide, Chekhov, in typical fashion, puts his foot in his mouth and decides to chomp down.
We do believe all planets have a sovereign claim to inalienable human rights.
To which you gotta give Isabor a little bit of credit for how she responds, but at the same time,
she laces it with venom.
Yes.
Inalienable. If only you could hear yourselves. Human rights. Why, the very name is racist. The Federation is no more than a Homo sapiens only club.
Present company included, referring to Spock.
Yep.
Which, before this, is when Chang brings up that whole question of to be or not to be, he follows up with, "We need breathing room." Which
Earth, Hitler, 1938.
And leave it to Kirk to invoke that one.
Perfect.
Followed up with, "I beg your pardon?"
And that's just quickly glossed over.
It's probably for the better that the Klingons didn't understand that reference.
Yeah, I think there would have been quite the brawl that broke out had they understood the historical reference and connotation that goes along with it. Now, granted, Kirk isn't entirely wrong.
They would have been on his side. They probably would have taken it as a compliment.
Except for the fact that Hitler, in the end, got his ass handed to him.
Well, if he would have been a Klingon, he wouldn't have.
True. Maybe.
So at that, they call it a night and decide that it's time to go their own ways as the Klingons return back to their own ship.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
And Gorkin specifically says, "You don't trust me, do you? I don't blame you. If there is to be a brave new world, our generation is going to have the hardest time living in it." Again, admitting we are the dinosaurs.
We are the dinosaurs. We are facing the... We are looking at the asteroid, and we're either going to adapt or die.
And if at some point along this journey, you have to accept, I need to get out of the way of progress. If you can't accept the progress, you need to get out of its way. Which, not accepting the progress and not getting out of its way turns into the next theme for the movie. As we bid the Klingons adieu, and I love, as soon as they leave, everybody just...
Well, you have Uhura and Chekhov going into their table manners, or lack thereof, and McCoy, probably the most sensible of them all, I'm gonna find a pot of black coffee.
Kirk, I'm gonna go sleep this off. Please let me know if there's some other way we can screw up tonight.
Oh, why did you have to jinx it? Because Kirk then goes in and does follow-on personal log, and then makes a note. Note to the galley, Romulan ale no longer to be served at diplomatic functions.
Good call. Really good call.
And just as he's laying down, Spock, the green blood who can devour any poison and not have it affect him, Captain Kirk, can you come to the bridge, please? Well, join me on the bridge. To which Kirk reluctantly, but rightfully, should have, goes to the bridge.
And now Kirk has the flap open, so this is casual Kirk, not business Kirk. We've got business Kirk, casual Kirk.
Yeah, that's not the only flap he has open at the moment. You just don't see it.
So Spock identifies that there is a strange neutron radiation emanating from underneath the ship. It appears to be coming from the ship.
To which
is...
Love this line. Kirk has Chekhov. Chekhov, are you aware of any radiation surge? Only the size of my head. Oh, but I thought Russians were supposed to be able to handle their alcohol.
It wasn't vodka. If it would have been vodka, he'd have been fine.
Yeah, apparently the Romanians don't know how to distill properly.
So as this is all going down, we get the first dramatic scene of what's about to play out. A torpedo is launched and hits the Klingon ship. And immediately, the crew starts trying to confirm, did we fire? Torpedo room, please confirm, have we fired?
Armed torpedo fired. And you get that typical, oh shit, scramble, which in this case would end up happening. And we get the interlaced cuts of what's going on the Klingon ship, where you have them questioning, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck just happened? And as she's listing further, there's another shot. And this second shot disables the the artificial gravity aboard the Klingon ship.
Get a confirmation from the weapons banks that we have accountability on all torpedoes. And about this time, with one of the teasers, 2 individuals transport onto the Klingon pad with Klingon coloring. What would you call it for the transport?
Well, yeah, you have your Klingon transporter beam there, which this is something that I will give this time period of Trek correctly, is that They are sticking with when you're on a Starfleet transporter pad, you get the blue. When you're on the Klingon, you're getting that orangish red. And it doesn't change onto the other, where they have made that mistake before in the past.
Yeah, and they'll make the mistake again in Star Trek 7.
This is one of my few complaints for the animation and for the CGI. The blood and the zero gravity effects on this ship, terrible. But the rest of the effects on the ships make me happy. So we have our two crewmen walking around with their grav boots on and clearly have Starfleet uniforms, shooting at the Klingons as they make their way to the Chancellor's quarters, or to his briefing room, wherever he's at. And you get that look of, oh, fuck. And shot and tumble. They note on the Enterprise that at this point the Klingon ship is still... She's still listing. Our two individuals transport back, or off, I should say, and they re-engage the or the artificial gravity. And at this point, Chang, where's my notes? It's like, we came here in peace, and you violated that. I will blow you out.
How dare you defile that peace?
I will blow you out of the stars. And Kirk starts demanding, did we fire? Did we fire? We didn't fire at you. And everyone's asking, shields, Captain? Should we raise our shields, Captain?
Captain, our shields.
And as they're staring down the mouth of the Klingon ship,
we surrender. What? We surrender.
We surrender. That is not a standard Kirk thing to do. Absolutely not. A young, arrogant Kirk would have fought that out. But I think the old Kirk, that is, his diplomacy is starting to kick in, and he realizes the gravity of what has just happened, and he cannot fight his way out of this.
At which point the Klingons recognize the surrender, and they power down their weapons for the time being. At which point Kirk and McCoy say that they're going over there to find out what happened. And
here we have the very
Spock,
casual... Really?
Sly?
I mean, just like... Really? And you don't see it there, but so what's happening at that point, and it's blatant in the movie. If you see it, he has just put something on the back of Kirk, and it is not hidden. It is not obscure. It is something sitting on top of his uniform, which we will still see in upcoming scenes.
And no one questions it.
No. Kirk and McCoy make it over to the Klingon ship, make it into the Chancellor's office, and they're able to convince the Klingons to allow McCoy to start rendering aid. He is still alive, but
barely
on deathbed.
It's a lot of Pepto.
Well, they are
That's
Klingons.
The nice thing about having. That's the nice thing about having killing an alien. You can make them look like whatever you want to on the inside.
And McCoy even comments that he doesn't even know his anatomy. Don't you have scanners there that will show you his anatomy, McCoy?
Not only that, but he has positively identified disguised Klingons before.
Yeah.
With
ugly German Truth just pointed out something. Let me go back. He says that one of the Klingons is staring directly at...
No, go back to where they're holding him, just inside the room. There we go. His head is right there above the shoulder that Spock put the patch on.
What's this weird thing on your uniform, bro? Oh, never mind. Let me not pay attention to that. I'm a shitty guard.
Again, only high-end models can talk.
One thing I really did like about this scene is you can tell McCoy is trying to save Gorkin's life. No question about it. But even the most skilled of doctors and surgeons cannot bring someone back that far. And Gorkin has his last message to Kirk.
Don't let it end this way, Captain.
And the Chancellor is gone. At which point, the Klingons, citing Federation law, arrest Kirk and McCoy.
Not just Federation law, interstellar law.
So they're placed under arrest and taken away. And at this point is when the murder mystery dinner theater starts over on the Enterprise. So Spock instructs to notify that he has taken command, contact Starfleet, and await instructions from them as they start trying to figure out, did they actually fire 2 torpedoes? Because at this point, you can see on the console, their computer systems are now indicating that they have fired 2 torpedoes. And I think it's in here that Spock points out that... where's the line? Because they're trying to figure out what they're going to be doing.
Whoever altered the memory banks is here. Whatever we are looking for is here.
Correct. Yep, that's the line I was looking for. So then the next scene is back on Earth with the Federation president, Red Kelso. Dumbass.
Although I do give them credit here as well. Same Klingon ambassador for how many appearances now?
Yep.
And
Vulcan.
he's not just red, he's also Anorax.
It's true. So we have a Klingon ambassador, a Romulan ambassador, and the Vulcan ambassador discussing what is going to happen because the Klingons now want to try Kirk and McCoy. And the president tries to push back from it, but all of the ambassadors agree this is what has to be done by law. And this is where a line that popped out at me as very poignant for today. This president is not above the law. Just saying. So.
Wait. Stop. When it comes to presidents being above the law, I think you guys are in a more unique position than the rest of us. Putting that out there.
Multiple times over.
Total control. I mean, you have total power. At least that's what I thought. Anyways, moving on.
Was it ever revealed what species the Federation president is from?
No, but he's not the first appearance of this species. In Star Trek IV, the navigation officer of the Saratoga, same species.
He almost looks like half Klingon, half human, but that would not fit with this timeline, having a Klingon as the Federation president.
Oh, Dora, it's not too soon. This isn't the first president we've had that's been this idiotic legally.
So at this point, they're trying to...
Starfleet Command is literally screaming at them to come back to space dock.
Apparently, the species is called Elfrosians.
So Starfleet's screaming for them to come back, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do because they can't just leave the captain and McCoy. At which time, we get a little bit of a history lesson that long ago, in the French workers would throw their sandals inside of the machinery. French. I'm pretty sure it was French. Their sandals, which were known as sabots, and they would throw them into the machinery to gum up the machinery so that they wouldn't have to work. Hence the term sabotage. Now, I will add to that little bit of nugget of trivia that tank rounds that are not fitting the breech, that have a shell around it that separates as it leaves the breech, it's a sabo discarding round. Sabo, same term, because as the French were developing early artillery rounds, they used the same wood and shoes as the filler around shells to get full compression inside the chamber.
Yeah, and we see how well that worked out for them.
Well, you gotta fire them in order for them to be effective.
And not
Why
just
does,
in
why does a
training.
French tank have rear view mirrors?
So they know where they're going?
So they can see the enemy.
Yeah, both works. All right, at which point Uhura takes the clue, takes a suggestion as all backup systems inoperative. Fantastic.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
too bad.
Too bad. And then we get word from the new chancellor, Gorkon's niece,
Daughter, Ezabur.
Daughter.
that there will be no extradition, no extraction of the prisoners, but they will continue with the peace talks.
And any attempt to do so would be an act of war.
Ugly German Truth just made a perfect comment in the side chat. Apparently, the Iraqis optimized the use of shoes as projectiles as well.
Oh, love
Nice.
that clip.
Nice. So we now move. We have the Klingon generals trying to convince her that this is the time to strike. Attack or be the slaves in their world. War is obsolete, General, as we are in danger of becoming. You can get your switch, honey.
Sounds familiar.
Better to die on our feet than to live on our knees. Which, coming up later on, there is a specific species that we run into later that would not want to live on his knees because it would be painful.
Your father was killed for what he believed in.
Yes. So now we move into the most fair of trials ever on the Klingon homeworld. Which this is one hell of an intimidating trial. You got to admit that.
And you know what? Star Trek Enterprise? Good on you for having your set for the trial of Archer being as close of a replication of this as you can make it. And hey, look, what's that right there?
What's that on his shoulder? What's that thing? Nobody's noticed? How many days have passed and these two are still in the same outfits?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, the thing about the Archer trial, I actually really liked the Klingon lawyer. Which, if he had been in this film, would have made it a little bit better as well. I'm not saying that the movie is bad. I think it's awesome, but it would just be a little bit of a cherry on top.
Mm.
I really love this entire trial scene. They put this together so well to show the different people and groups that had a vested interest in the results of this to this scene where they're watching it from the president's office. Everybody in there, and I know at some point I've got a shot of them watching it from the Enterprise.
The Excelsior.
Yep, that came in later, and I love the language transition. They made that perfect seamless, where they started with the translators translating it into each language, and then just randomly he switches to English, but Kirk and McCoy continue to act as though they're getting the translation, which comes up a little bit later as well. So this is an amazing scene for me. I love this.
Yeah, especially with how Chang got into it towards the end there. And that whole back and forth, it ended up being a back and forth. Now we, of course, as with any trial, we're getting eyewitness testimony, which how they pulled that off for him to be as convincingly like that with no arm,
Yeah.
good on ya.
We need to look into that. Maybe he was already missing an arm and they shot off a fake one. That's what I would have done. I would have found a dude that was missing his right arm.
Usually you bind the arm behind the back and just film it from the front.
Yeah. Yeah, but doing it from that angle was very well done. To be able to hide it in that potential without even hinting at excess bulk that would be excessive even for a Klingon. It's just one of those little nuances to the visual presentation of this that they got right. Hint,
Do you have
CBS.
the name of the guy? So I can look up the actor?
Yeah, I don't know. Klingon that gets his arm shot off?
Don't think he was a named character, unfortunately. But continuing on.
We go around continuing seeing everybody, and we get to see that Worf.
We get to see Worf's grandfather.
Yep. And again, everybody watching it, and Chang starts drilling in on McCoy, which I think gives us a little bit of a history on it. He brings up that McCoy has been the surgeon for the Enterprise for 27 years.
Seems a little low.
Oh, got him. So the character is named Stex, Stex, and the actor is called Brett Porter. So let's see.
Be one-armed, be one-armed, be one-armed.
And?
No.
Ah,
Looks like he has both arms.
Damn it.
So yeah.
So
Good.
McCoy has been the surgeon on the Enterprise for 27 years, and in 3 months he was set to stand down. And now Chang just drills him on alcohol use, being incompetent.
And
Go ahead, Jared.
And be very careful with how you answer this next question. Have you ever saved someone who is as dire a situation as the Chancellor was?
I tried to save him. He was our last best hope for peace in the galaxy. And again, I'm mixing actors. DeForest Kelly.
Yep.
Nails it. I mean, nails that line. You can see the emotions behind it. He nails it. For as shitty of an actor as Kirk is, McCoy picks up for it.
Seems to be a common thread.
Yeah. And then we've got more Klingon or more Shakespeare quotes. And there's the I tried to save him.
I was desperate to save him.
Wait, is that a Shakespeare quote as well?
No, right after is actually a quote from Kirk's favorite author. Let us sit around the fire and talk of sad stories. Tell me, Kirk, what's your sad story? And
then we hear.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So you say, and then we come up to them playing the audio from Kirk's personal log, as specifically, I've never trusted a Klingon, and I never will. And the crowd eats it up.
And they play it again.
And again. And again.
At which point, the Federation president is like, fuck!
And then we start talking about Admiral Kirk. That he was once an admiral. He had been promoted. And that he was demoted for insubordination. And that is it not a fact that you have been punished as you are insubordinate, unprincipled, a career-minded opportunist history of violating the chain of command. Now, as shitty of an actor as Shatner can be, and the history of Kirk, I would like to go through these individually. Insubordinate, yes. Unprincipled,
No.
no. Career-minded,
No.
50% maybe,
Uh,
but not really.
Yeah, I would say less career-minded. If you go career-minded opportunist, maybe you have a better case there.
With a history of violating the chain of command, absolutely.
When it
But he
suited
is
him,
not
yeah.
unprincipled. Yeah, he is not unprincipled. He is not an unprincipled captain. He has been the one that has made the hard right over the easy wrong. And then we get our sentencing of... Oh, this is
This
the
is
translation line.
Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now.
And what was the question on that one? I don't have that one written down.
Give me just a second here.
I thought you said you had the script.
I've got it. I'm looking for it right now.
Oh, Ugly German sure says, have you seen the chain of command in the Federation, though? Yeah, sometimes it's better to take the decision out of their purview.
Especially when it turns out that all the admirals are controlled by insect thingies that live inside your neck.
Oh, here we go. The record shows that Captain Kirk once held the rank of admiral, and that Admiral Kirk was broken for taking matters into his own hands in defiance of regulations of the law. Do you deny being demoted for these charges? Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now.
Answer me now! I can't deny it. You're demoted
Yes.
for insubordination.
On occasion, I have taken matters into my own hands.
Were you obeying or disobeying orders when you arranged for the assassination of Chancellor Gorkin?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
Jay?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a loaded question.
Well, no, if you got the script.
What the response?
Oh, I didn't know about the assassination until we boarded the ship.
You still deny the Enterprise fired upon Gorkin's Kronos 1?
Well,
And then
No,
Colonel
Worf.
Worf, Your Honor, please. And you still deny your men beamed aboard and shot at the Chancellor's ship?
I cannot confirm nor deny actions I did not see.
Captain Kirk, are you aware that as a captain of a starship, you are required to be responsible for the actions of your men?
I am.
And if it should be proven that members of your crew did, in fact, carry out such an assassination? And then McCoy jumps in. Jim, they're setting you up. Your honors, don't answer them. Captain Kirk, you will answer the question.
As captain, I am responsible for the conduct of my crew under my command.
Your honors, the state rests.
Then Sulu, send to command Enterprise. We are ready to assist you. Captain Sulu, USS Excelsior.
And then it is the determination of this court that the prisoners are guilty as charged. And the punishment?
In light of the forthcoming peace talks, the sentence of death is commuted.
No!
It is the judgment of this court that, without the possibility of reprieve or parole, you be taken from this place to the dilithium mines on the penal asteroid of Ruropente,
Where you will be forced to watch the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery until you die.
I'd rather mine the dilithium.
And Picard.
God, I'd actually rather have a firing squad.
And,
then
even Scott says, better now to kill him and get it over with.
At which time the murder mystery dinner theater continues, and they're discussing if they didn't fire the torpedoes, who did? Oh, and then there's another one of those. So many people stealing heritage here. An ancestor of mine's maintained that if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however probable, must be true. So apparently, Occam's razor came from Vulcan.
We got a super chat. Got all the sex from Bjorn Kamitz. Thanks for the hangout. It's just as nerdy as I am, but it makes me realize I have to rewatch the original series and movies, as I don't remember most of this. Keep up the great work, all of you.
Thanks, Bjorn.
But yes, it seems like the Vulcans and ancient humanity by this time period have a lot of similar sayings. Although, to be fair, Spock is half human, so that could be what he's referring to.
True.
There is a serious fuck up in the logic, though, because you can never make sure that you ruled out every possibility.
Well, no, that's what it says, is if you rule out the probable, no matter whatever is left, no matter how impossible, must be the case.
Yeah, well, obviously this is a variation of Sherlock Holmes's way of thinking
Yes.
by Arthur Doyle. And I think the original quote was, if you have a given set of possibilities and you roll up every other one, the remaining one must be true, no matter how improbable. The problem with this is that you can never know that there are no other possibilities that you just haven't looked at yet.
I thought it was the probability with the least amount of assumptions.
No, that's Occam's razor.
Yeah.
Okay. So back on the ship, they continue, like I said, the murder mystery theater. Spock wants to watch it again, and we see that it does appear that the Enterprise fired a torpedo.
No, it's not. Every torpedo visually accounted for, sir.
Every single torpedo has been touched by Scotty and verified they did not fire. And that is when the Occam's razor comes in, that no matter how improbable it is, it must be true.
Yeah. So, and when you think about it, no matter... So they didn't fire. Whoever altered the memory banks is there. Whoever beamed over and committed the assassination is there. And all that they have to tie them to it, as was exposed in the trial, 2 pairs of gravity boots.
And there it is. So, the crew... This is what... they don't have a scene here, but they've got a search scene later. So now, the ship begins looking for their gravity boots. And we get to see Repente.
Kind of wonder what would give it that wonderfully violet hue. Although, now, how is this for a intimidation-laced admission to a penal colony? You walk up, door opens from under the ground, and what comes out? A near-naked prisoner being tossed into the snow.
Tell him about the gun line, boss.
Well, welcome to the Gulag Repente. There's
I was
no...
about to say the exact same thing, Jared. Fuck you.
Hey, if you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah, obviously
Yes.
we've been talking about Soviet Union motives earlier in the film, and this is just the next one. To be deported to fucking Siberia to serve, I don't know, building a rail track or something. Trail.
Yeah, and they actually refer to... train track, and they actually refer to it as an outright gulag.
All right,
Where
you got to
there's
say it with
no-
a deep German accent, Gio, if you're going to read it. Are you going to read it? Come on. Do you have the script?
I do not.
Line.
Wait a second.
Ah,
Getting something to drink now.
fine.
Also,
This is the gulag.
if there's anybody who can make a Russian accent, it's not me.
This is the Gulag Rurapente. There is no stockade, no guard tower, no electronic frontier. Only a magnetic shield prevents beaming. Punishment means exile from prison to the surface. On the surface, nothing can survive. Work hard, and you'll be treated. Work well, and you'll be treated well.
Work badly,
Work badly,
and you will die. And in the matter of 30, 45 seconds of that speech, homeboy there froze to death.
Yep. And don't forget, it's Ira Graves that is your gulag master.
Who is that?
Ira Graves, Schizoid Man from TNG.
Okay.
He also is in Voyager as well.
And McCoy makes a comment here that he was 3 months from retirement.
Is that a Lethal Weapon rip?
Yeah,
Mark?
pretty much.
I'm too old for this shit.
Get a lot of the visuals of some of the strange alien, dregs of Klingon society, in which tall MFer here starts.
Who doesn't move his mouth when he talks.
Sometimes you don't have to. Keeps asking Kirk the same question over and over, to which Kirk's trying to explain to him, the universal translator's been confiscated. And then, just like a wonderful plot device, in comes Iman to translate for him, saying, he wants your obedience to the Brotherhood of Aliens. He's got it. And your coat. I don't think it would fit. So even in a situation like this, Kirk still has his sense of humor.
In the script, he's listed as Behemoth Alien.
Yeah, that fits. Unlike the code.
No, Harry M. That guy is coming up soon.
Yeah, that's coming up. So she talks him down, gets Kirk down, and warns them that there is a bounty on their head.
Don't get very many political prisoners.
And now we get back onto the Enterprise, where we get a nice quote of how big the complement is. They have 300 crew members searching for Boots.
And
They
which
must
point,
be here somewhere.
Well, Chekhov asks, well, why not just vaporize him? Oh, you mean
Because-
like this?
Wah, 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 wah. And I didn't get any of those. Like, 3 different groups of people come in. Is somebody firing phasers in here?
Because any unauthorized use of phaser aboard a starship sets off the alarm.
In terms of phaser secure or weapon safety in general, Starfleet really seems to suck. I mean, having the unlocked phasers there all the time without them being secured in any random way.
Yeah, why were there
Remember-
phasers in the kitchen?
Yeah, that as well. Remember the time when Data and Geordi were testing the Romulan weapon in fucking engineering, pointing it directly at the warp core?
Yeah, Ugly German Truth has a good point. That did not require a demonstration.
It was pretty cool, though. You gotta admit it.
Yeah.
But
And then-
all the mushroom soup is now gone. That means only MREs for half of the crew for the next 2 days.
Hey, O'Brien would love it.
So Uhura comes running in, and she's one of those, is someone firing phasers in here? And then she informs Spock that Starfleet has ordered them to return immediately. And then Scotty comes running in, who's firing phasers in here? And Spock immediately asks him, "What's wrong with the engines, Scotty, and how long will it take to fix them?"
There's nothing
Also, what the
wrong
fuck
with
is wrong with
anything.
Spock's ear?
It curved a little much.
Way too much.
Looking. So this is where Scotty finally picks up what Spock is putting down. "Aye, sir. It's terrible. The warp coils are offline. It'll be days."
Could take weeks.
So now they continue the search, and here's Mr. Knees.
Because of course, every good prison scene needs a fight between your protagonist and a random person, at which Kirk gets backed into a corner, ends up getting knocked down, and he thinks, "Hey, let me take out this guy's knees." And he
starts changing colors. And the sound he makes is the "I got kicked in the balls" sound. Absolutely.
Yep. And to which Kirk even responds, "I'm just glad he had knees. That was not his knee."
Not everyone keeps their genitals in the same place.
Tell him I'm sorry. That I don't hold a grudge. Perhaps he does.
So now they start talking about how to get out. So she explains that there is a way out, and then we crawl up into bed, and Kirk and McCoy start chatting, and I think this is really when it starts setting in with Kirk that he had the wrong mindset when this all started. Because he asks McCoy, "Are you afraid of the future?" Because some people are afraid, and I was terrified. I was terrified that there'd be no more neutral zone. I was so used to hating the Klingons. It never even occurred to me to take Gorkin at his word. This is when Kirk is recognizing that he is in the way.
He's part of the problem.
And then they get snuck up on by Hottie McHottie in this particular iteration of her phase. Tells them, "I can get you out. Meet me tomorrow at one of the mine shafts." And then Kirk does what Kirk has always done.
Except this time...
Kirk was rock hard at that point, and that was not because of the cold.
And it wasn't Kirk who initiated it that time.
No. And then McCoy, "What is it with you?"
Some guys just have all the luck. And then we get quite the cameo here.
We do, yeah.
You get the barging in of Captain Sulu to let him know of the request from Starfleet Command for any information they have on the whereabouts of Enterprise. To which Sulu says,
we have no idea.
Nothing. We know nothing. "Sir, do you have a hearing problem, mister?" And the actor to play this bit part, none other than Christian Slater.
And for the longest time, he was listed as uncredited on IMDb, and now is credited.
Huh. I wonder why.
Well, I think originally he didn't want to be associated with Star Trek in this way, especially for such a small scene. He was like, "Yeah, whatever." Mm-hmm. And then later it was like, "Oh,
people noticed, and it was like, yeah, it was me."
Yeah.
And then amongst the search, we get this wonderful shot of this dried trace on a deck plate somewhere. I'm going to find out it's right off the transporter pad. And check.
And it is Klingon blood.
Yeah. As confirmed.
By what really looks like the coronavirus there way in the background.
Foreshadowing? It's all a government conspiracy. See, it's in the media. God, someone's going to take that out of fucking context. I know it.
Or don't you have your soundboards ready?
That's
What do we
Jay.
do?
And
No. I'll take
Okay,
it out
so-
of context later.
So
so
this is the all hands on deck. Search through all uniforms looking for Klingon blood.
which they're looking, still looking for the boots, and they ultimately find one in the locker of a crewman named Dax.
Yeah, let's just hope that that's not the same Dex. I mean, we know that it's not the same Dex.
Yeah.
Unless
That
there's
would
some
have been
sort of
hilarious.
weird freak accident regarding,
Oh,
parasites.
you didn't get the
Simians.
shot. Yeah, you didn't get the shot in the lift where McCoy actually goes to Kirk and says, "I think we've been had."
Oh, that's coming up.
Yes. I think we've been had. No, you haven't, Doctor.
And then what was the line? You know, and last night you. I know.
Well,
I
even
don't want to
before,
think about it.
well, even before that is, who they let work down in the mines.
Oh yes, because they don't let women work down in the mines.
Unless they're Klingon women. And even then, who knows?
Klingon women are manlier than most men of all other species.
Yeah, just ask Quark.
Or Riker.
Mm.
So
Remember
now
what
we're back to
Riker on the Klingon ship. One or both.
So now we get back and we have crewman Dax called in front of everyone that can fit in that room. Here's the problem. 1, you wouldn't actually do that in this sort of investigation. 2, as you can see Spock hinting towards Chekhov after Chekhov says, maybe you've heard of Russian epic called Cinderella. If shoe fits,
You fit.
wear it. Yeah, I don't see him wearing any shoes.
Please. Is it possible that the way they filmed this was by using somebody using his hands? I think this is strange.
No, that is prosthetics attached to someone's foot, because that heel is definitely the heel of a foot, not the heel of a hand.
Oh yeah, the heel. Yeah, I didn't see that. I just imagine somebody having to kneel down to film this, which would be absolutely hilarious.
So then we go back to the mines
Junta.
as she turns into the little girl.
And gets out of her chains. No, this isn't smelling like a setup at all.
Oh, not at all. Hurry up. We don't have much time. And then randomly transform back into giant dude because it needs a little more fur, I imagine, out in the cold. And on the way, we see multiple dead bodies of people that have tried to escape. And we get some nice surface scenes of the frozen surface of Rodopente.
Now, interesting thing, all this footage was filmed on location on top of an actual glacier up in Alaska.
Was it these characters or was it stand-ins?
Probably, if I remember correctly, stand-ins, because if you notice, a lot of this footage is very panned from an elevated.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was the actors, because they had some of the scenes, like, go back, the close-ups here were done on location, not that bit, but where they crest over.
Mm-hmm.
There. So,
Yeah.
like that bit was the actual actors who were in that bit. Granted, it was a stunt double instead of Amon for that bit. And they did a lot of those scenes from helicopter over 2 days, if I remember correctly, up in Alaska on top of an actual glacier. So actual real world, and then just recolored in post in the editing. But they eventually get to a point where they are outside of the shield. And granted, through that path, it was right around this scene, either just before or just after, McCoy falls and says, "I'm done, leave me." To which Kirk lets him know that before they left for Gorkon's ship, Spock put a Viridian patch on his back so that they were being tracked from sectors away. Oh.
Why that cunning little Vulcan?
Yeah. At which point, as they see that they're getting close, the Enterprise goes into high warp to make their rescue attempt. But they're being tracked by a Klingon border post. Dus weet onok, Reen.
What ship is that, over?
And he keeps repeating the question. Meanwhile, Chekhov states that can't use the universal translator. It'll be recognized. And depending which level of canon you go with, shouldn't Uhura already be fluent in Klingon?
Even if she wasn't,
Come on now,
there
she's
will
not Hoshi.
be somebody on the Enterprise that is fluent in Klingon.
Yeah. Out of 300 people with the long-standing hostilities with Klingon, you would think someone in just the communications department, they would be able to do this instead of having to go through, granted, this comical interaction.
There's going to be some random janitor that knows Klingon. So as they're digging through the books, I am thy freighter, Yorzva.
Ursova.
What?
Huh? we is condemning food and things and supplies. And also that they were only a few days out of Kronos. So, to which the listening post answers, "Don't catch any bugs."
And I love the one character off to the right. Laugh,
Come on,
laugh, you idiot, laugh.
Fuck. And then we get a wonderful case of exposition here, where Kirk realizes what we have. Well, it starts off with McCoy asking, "Do you mind explaining that thing you do?"
And she...
I'm a Kamaloid.
She's Kamaloid. I've heard about you shapeshifters. I thought you were mythical.
No, I'm Martha.
Give me a chance, Captain.
It takes a lot of effort.
So then they all stand up, and out of nowhere, Kirk punches Martha. And McCoy doesn't understand why until Kirk lays it out that just conveniently those clothes were out there, as well as the campfire stick.
The
is that
flare.
Is that standard issue in the mines? We're being tracked. And what are they offering? He specifically asks, what are they offering you? And her response is, a full pardon.
Which doesn't cover this.
And then she turns into Kirk.
Which ends up being one of the more interesting fight scenes Kirk has ever been a part of. Because it does...
Kirk on Kirk.
It does boil down to the question, how would you determine which one was the real Kirk and which one was the shapeshifter?
Check which one has more STDs.
Yeah.
Or even easier, what did Marta do right before they went through that wall? Shrunk down to the little girl and got out of her chains? So one still has the leg chains on, the other doesn't.
Yeah. So we have a nice little Kirk on Kirk battle scene. Another one of the terrible CGI and videography. Oh.
The lighting is uneven, yes, which, yeah. But the line itself was actually pretty interesting, the back and forth.
I can't believe I kissed you.
Must have been your lifelong ambition.
Talking about internal conflicts here.
Yeah.
I like it here.
Isn't it about time you change into something else? I like it here. You know, and it was that delivery. It looked like Shatner was having fun with this one.
Yep. So, and as they're rolling around on the ground, suddenly...
We get the vicious dog.
And we are surrounded by Klingons. And
shoot him,
pure dumb luck.
It's played off that way, but I think he may have known which one it was by, again, look at the feet, which one's still bound. A shapeshifter isn't going to remain bound if they don't need to be. Because this guy, as he releases, he knows, well, you're going to die anyways, so why not tell you?
Why not tell you who hired me?
Damn it, damn it,
And-
damn it.
Son of a... Couldn't you have waited 2 seconds?
You want to
us
go
send
back?
you back?
Absolutely not. It's cold.
It's cold.
And then we've got good old Scotty having a cup of coffee, looking over his schematics.
Now,
Which, to Scotty, this is porn to Scotty. You got to admit it.
oh, okay, leave it right here, because do you notice something? Why are the red X's there?
That's all the points that he has to sanitize, having to clean up after Kirk.
Also, those are the majority of spots that the ship is about to get hit in the upcoming battle.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Nice.
That was a goof.
Little bit.
Yeah. Scotty hears a strange noise, walks across the room, and finds the missing uniforms. At which time the Klingons notify Chang that Kirk and McCoy have escaped. And they need to meet them at the location for the peace accords to confront them. And at this point, Kirk and McCoy are still wearing the same outfits they've been wearing for like a month now, probably.
Now, granted, they're literally just getting off the transporter pad and are walking along while getting an update from Spock, where they have figured out that there is a Klingon bird of prey that can fire while cloaked. And Scotty runs up and meets someone that's like, hey, I found the uniforms with the Klingon blood on them. And open the door.
Dun dun dun.
It's the two guys from the transporter room earlier in the movie.
The first rule of assassination: eliminate the assassin.
Yeah. And they're actually named Burke and Samno.
At which time Kirk has the brilliant idea of putting over the the PA system for the court reporter. Wouldn't you call the cops? Why would you have the court reporter come and take a sworn statement? But oh well, I'll get off that soapbox.
Again, court reporters are the easiest way to do a sworn statement. So, plausibility there. But it's the whole thing, setting up. And you see them talk. You don't hear it, but it's like, what just got set up? And then yes, that next announcement is Code Blue urgent, court reporter to sickbay. Again, Code Blue urgent, court reporter to sickbay to take statements from crewmans Burke and Samno. So not only did they say to take statements, court reporter report to this area, they blasted out why.
And the guys behind it, whoever the murderer was, is a shitty murderer. So you need to come and murder them again. Would she have fallen for this?
You would like to think not, but
I have dinner in about 15 minutes, so I need to start burning through these. But we're almost there. And we see our mystery person entering the sick bay,
Going
an
over
extremely
to the
dark
two
sick
beds.
bay. And you get to see Spock just laying there. And he confronts his protege and says that you have to kill me. You have to shoot.
If
If
you
you're
are
logical.
if you're logical, you must shoot.
But I don't want to. Dirty Kirk jumps up. How long were you standing in the doorway when I was reading off my personal log? And then she tells you heard this in the previous statement or the conversation with her and Spock of she tried to tell him that the current path that we're on is not a sustainable path. That we can't go along with letting the Klingons live. But you wouldn't listen.
No one was particularly hearing well that evening, Lieutenant.
Super chat.
I was going to wait for the announcement to come up on the screen. I do have the alert, but we'll get it read before then. Bjorn Kemetz, yet again, another 50 secs. Which, hey, you two with the cameras, you two are going to have to dance later.
Sorry, my camera's unplugged.
Yeah,
sure.
mine broke.
Likely excuse. You all have a good evening. Thanks all for the great time. No, it's great having you aboard. Remember, we'll be here and we only have a little bit left and we have enough time. The end is in sight.
So now we bring her back on the bridge to confront her of her crimes.
Why not the brig?
Because then you can't make a spectacle of what's about to happen. And we've got casual Kirk here. We have casual Kirk and casual McCoy, but we have professional Spock.
And
True.
professional Chekhov.
So, look at their notes. You even said yourself, sir, that they can't be trusted. And they start asking, who is behind this? Everyone that stands to lose from peace.
Who? I want names. I do not remember.
A lie?
A choice. To which,
This is
a tough scene. This segment, this forced
Mental rape.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is. And yet he does get the information.
So
Cartwright.
apparently torture does work.
Cartwright.
Admiral Cartwright, General Kang, and the Romulan ambassador. But there's one thing she does not know.
Where's the peace conference? To which even Spock says she doesn't know, so they reach out to the Excelsior and Sulu right there, ready to go. Camp Kittimer on the border of the Romulan neutral zone. Funny how that would be the place they go.
Yeah. And then Kirk asks how many of them there are, and she responds that there's just the prototype.
Now, here's the nice bit of continuity. The Kittimer Accords, prior to this movie being written, were known, so they actually stuck with the established canon at this point on where this peace conference ultimately was going to take place. It wasn't, as this movie is established, it was initially slated to take place on Earth, but has since relocated to Camp Kittimer.
Where was the previous peace treaty from Kittimer in the original series? I don't remember which episode that was, but I swear it was in one of them.
No, you're thinking of the Babel Conference.
Oh, yep, you're right. So,
Kittimer, I think, was established in TNG.
Yes.
But not regarding the Kittimer Accords, but the Kittimer Massacre a few decades later.
So we're speeding away to Kittimer to stop whatever's going to happen there. Kirk comes in to have the conversations and flat out asks Spock, have we outlived our usefulness? No, Spock says that. Spock says, "Have we outlived our usefulness?"
And it is kind of odd for Spock to be the one to ask that question. And to which Kirk, being Kirk, is... No, there's still some usefulness to be had, but it is time for them to step aside.
I think they can still typecast us for one more movie.
Yep. But now, so I've noticed something to this point there, Blake, that I'm a little surprised.
What's that?
You went with the theatrical version instead of the director's cut.
I went with the one that was on Hulu.
Yeah, you went with the theatrical, not the director's cut. I went with my DVD.
So,
No.
question: where are the dinosaurs in this?
What?
Yes,
The building
yes,
is shaped like the
it looks
Power
like
Rangers headquarters.
well, it was 91, and
It came out in 92 or 93
Yeah.
in the States side.
yeah,
94, I think.
reuse of the set afterwards. But of course, so we get the view of the outside of the wonderfully peaceful diplomatic building and residence that the conference is going to be taking place in, and then we cut to presumably out towards orbit where we have the bird of prey arriving and then immediately cloaking. Because why not? And then we get Spock's countdown to arrival to transporter range at Kittimer.
And Kirk asked if there's anything out there, and I'm not sure who it was that responded. If she's out there, she's rigged for silent running. And we start getting the opening remarks for the peace accord with the president.
I promise all my voters freedom and 1 foot for every ass.
And to which we cut back to the space where we see the Enterprise arriving, and we're getting open comms of everything getting ready for them to transport down.
I can see you, Kirk. Can you see me?
Oh, now, be honest, Captain. This is the way you wanted it to be. Warrior to warrior, no peace between us. And then we get the signal to fire the first shot.
Ach, bach, ach, bech.
To which, after the hit, Kirk there is, all astern, back off, back off.
And then they get another shot, and I love this from Sulu, demanding they move faster. Sir, if we go any faster, we're going to fly her apart.
Fly her apart, then!
And we get Mystery Man with the briefcase.
And then we start getting the speech from the presiding Klingon Chancellor. And more exploding panels aboard the bridge of the Enterprise. And most beautiful shot... Most beautiful shot of the refit Enterprise ever in this right here. I have to admit,
That's pretty nice.
this is the best detailed, best view of it that has been put to film, bar none. It'd be better if it wasn't already getting beat up, but...
Yeah.
Is that a shadow on the neck of the ship? That looks weird.
It's got to be paint.
Where? Like, what? Which
Right
part?
on the neck.
The
Vertical.
On the neck, the vertical darker strip.
No, that's not a shadow. That's actual paint.
Really, I never noticed that one.
Yep. That's why I said this was the best shot of it. They've really got into the detail, and it actually was realistic looking detail. It looks like a metal ship.
And then as Chang continues to fire, tickle us, do we not laugh? Prick us, do we not believe?
Bleed, wrong us, shall we not revenge?
Gas.
Thing's got to
Yes,
have a
Captain.
tailpipe.
Yeah. And it really does make you wonder, why wasn't this done more to track cloaked ships afterwards, because Spock has it right. Whatever the under her impulse power, she expends fuel just like any other vessel. For us as plasma, but whatever the Klingon term, it's ionized gas. To which Uhura pipes up, "Hey, don't we have all that equipment for cataloging gaseous anomalies?"
Doctor, would you care to do a little bit of surgery on a torpedo?
Fascinating. So as they run off doing their thing, the next assassin is prepping his vantage point. And here we get a beautiful shot of the Enterprise A coming at us, and then just that random torpedo hit coming above and getting right alongside of it. That's another thing. Beautiful action shots of the hero vessels in this during this battle. Really shows what they were able to do back then. And of course, we get the arrival of the Excelsior, and Sulu even recognizing, now we've given them something else to shoot at. Ah, the game's afoot, huh? They fire at the Excelsior.
Excelsior starts getting stuff, and then we've got the surgery as Chang continues to talk. And the Enterprise gets a full hull breach.
In the officer's mess.
I'd give anything for him to shut up.
Because Chang was an arrogant ass during all of this with the quotes and the open comms. Because here's the thing. That's another way they could have tracked him. By the comm signal.
I mean, obviously he's an arrogant ass. He's British.
True. But then, once the torpedo's ready, and she's ready, Jim. Locked and loaded. Fire.
Fire.
And you get the tracking of it, and they're confused because it's going all over the place, and it's like, wait a minute. That's the path we were taking. To which they see it coming towards them. Chang realizes the impending doom and is like, fuck.
To be or not to be.
Target
Fire.
that explosion and fire. And here we get the initial footage, the initial use of the footage of a Klingon bird of prey exploding. Don't worry, you'll get to see it again in the next movie.
Multiple times, actually.
So now we're back on the
I think it
ground.
was used the third time on DS9 sometime later.
So now we're back on the ground at Kittimer, and we have our sniper up in the nest, going to take a pot shot at the Federation president as the Enterprise command staff beam down.
In which Scotty is told to go up high. And they're fighting through the crowd who doesn't know what's going on, and Kirk, in Kirkley fashion, dives and protects the president from a shot that was going to miss him anyways.
Kirk didn't know that. That shows some balls.
I'll give him that.
How can you miss over that distance? That's like, what, 20 meters maybe?
He trained with the Empire. I mean, his first job was as a stormtrooper.
Oh, okay. That explains a lot.
And I love as he lands, Kirk, Enterprise. Like, you've got to inform him who you are.
Arrest those men. Arrest yourself.
And, here we go. So the sniper's still up in the nest, and Scotty kicks in the door.
And kicks him through, well, shoots him, and he goes through the glass down to the floor below, where we get Cartwright.
Excelsior crew beaming down and stopping Cartwright, and everyone realizing what exactly is going down, and some very moving speeches by Kirk.
Yeah, and which of course he answers, to the question of what's the meaning of all of this? It's about the future and how people are afraid of the future. And her father, Gorgon, saw past it and wanted to move on, but there were people who wouldn't stand for the change. And that's where all the shenanigans that this movie has been about came from.
People can be very frightened of change.
And to which she, Isabor says,
We got to bring the witness.
Yeah, of course, got to make her feel really bad for how she failed. Isabor says to Kirk, "You have restored the faith of my father." To which Kirk replies,
you've restored my sons. And the claw just randomly starts clapping with really weird claps.
Yes. But you know what? The people who clapped weirdly are the aliens we've never seen clap before, so, hey, good on you on that bit.
Yeah.
Well, I know at least one sci-fi instance of weirder clapping.
And what would that be?
The aliens in Galaxy Quest.
True, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Ugly German Truth, so I don't get the reveal of the assassin as the human colonel.
Well, and that's why I kind of, before we get to the next bits, which are going to be the shots at the very end and the poignant lines, yes, there were a couple scenes that were missed that actually raised some questions initially, especially at the time. In the director's cut, after the initial meeting between the Federation president, the Klingon ambassador, Ambassador Sarek, and the Romulan ambassador Noncles, as the ambassadors are leaving, Starfleet Command is walking in, where it's the top two admirals, Cartwright and the initial gentleman. Yep, that's why we're speeding through this. And also a colonel, Colonel West, played by Renee Abernois, the better...
Wait, stop. How did you pronounce that?
I wasn't going to say Aberjonis, as some people have.
You said Auvernois. You missed the syllable there. There we go, that's better.
And where they go over a proposed rescue plan of Kirk and McCoy. In front of the Romulan ambassador. So there's that scene that was missed where the UFP president ends up saying, after Bill, one of the admirals, had said that these men have saved the Federation and this planet numerous times. And the president replies back, and they'll do it again by standing trial. And then, extra scene here that was lost. After the would-be apparently Klingon assassin falls through the window and lands and leads to his death, you actually have Worf's grandfather there very aptly pointing out, this is not Klingon blood. To which a rather tightly adhered prosthetic mask is removed, revealing that it's Colonel West who is the one actually up there with the sniper rifle. Bringing everything back together on just who was and was not involved in the plot to prevent the peace conference from reaching its conclusion, which, as we know, it actually does. And after this wonderful hero shot at the altar, we get a transition up to orbit with the Enterprise A and the Excelsior next to each other, where everyone's getting ready to go on their merry way when Sulu and his crew bid farewell to the Enterprise and the associations that they have had to this point, wishing each other well. We then get the reminder from Uhura that Starfleet Command is ordering the Enterprise back to space dock to be decommissioned.
But you missed one line, though.
But I was getting to that because it's better to have that be the precursor to the very last line of the movie.
Yeah.
And as the Excelsior is departing to go back towards her mission, Chekhov notices, so this is goodbye. And I believe it was McCoy who mentioned.
Oh, no. Are you talking about the Excelsior?
Yes.
Or... Okay.
The size of the ship. That's a pretty big ship. To which Scotty replies, not as big as her captain, I presume. Mentioning just the balls that Sulu has as a commander, and which has been rather fitting in why, of the bridge crew, he was the one that they showed moving on to another ship as the commander, as the captain.
And this is the Chekhov, so this is goodbye. I think it's about time we got underway ourselves, says the captain. And then Uhura, Captain, we have orders from Space Command, Starfleet Command. We're to put back into space dock immediately to be decommissioned.
To which
we get the pan around the room of everyone's faces, and then Spock. If I were human, I believe my response would be, go to hell. If I were human.
And then we get the line from Kirk to end it that still gives me chills right now just thinking about it.
Course heading, Captain?
Second star to the right, and straight on till morning. And
the captain's log, USS Enterprise, stardate 9529.1. This is the final cruise of the Starship Enterprise under my command. The ship and her history will shortly become the care of another crew. To them and their posterity, we will commit our futures. They will continue the voyages we have begun and journey to all the undiscovered countries, boldly going where no man, where no one has gone before.
And this is how you end an era of a long-standing franchise of a show.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, you still get glimpses of the original cast here and there a few times. You get McCoy popping up in the pilot for TNG Encounter at Farpoint. You have Scotty showing up a couple seasons later in Relics. You have Kirk showing up in Generations, which, not the best, but hey, they tried. It's not as bad as some others have been. So you still have that lineage, you still have that connection, but you certainly have that sense of continuity and world building throughout.
Good ending.
And yes.
All right, gentlemen. Yeah, I've got to get heading out. I can smell my dinner out in the kitchen. I don't know if my children have already started eating it yet or not.
Oh, there with you.
So, it was a great show. This is a great movie to watch. I love this movie. Even with the little nitpicky things here or there, all around, this is one of the best Treks, in my opinion.
Well, we can all agree that the best Treks are 2, 4, 6, and 8. Not necessarily in that.
Not necessarily in that order, but yes, those are the top 4. And as I've had discussions with others before, it is definitely a 1, 1A, 2, 2A ranking between those 4.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I'm going to dip out. Thank you all for a wonderful evening. Until next time.
See ya, Furball.
See you, Furball.
See you guys.
I'd have to head out in a few minutes as well. It's almost 1 p.m. 1 a.m. over here.
It's like...
Yeah. It's getting to be dinner time here for me as well. And did I? Okay, no, you guys just went quiet. It's just weird how quickly it dropped off. But yeah, one of the other main surprising things of this really is when you look at it, that analogy that fighting the change of time as you're at the end of an era in history is very much like the end of the Cold War and the transition into the current state that we have between the major nation powers. And even in Star Trek, when you look at it, comparing it to the world we're in today, you look back through the history, you can see an analog just in representation, not necessarily in complete ideologies, where the Federation is seen as the West, as America at the center, but also all her allies. And then you have the Klingons as the Russians, and also you have the later advent and addition of the Romulans being comparable to China, especially with, as you get through TNG, where Russia and the US became friends post-Cold War. The Federation and Klingons became allies that weren't always on the same page, but were still allies, which left China out as being a growing superpower in the global scale of things, and now they're trying to exert themselves more over the past few years in their territorial claim. So you do have that ever-evolving dynamic with parallels to what we're seeing today, and it's not done in such a blatant manner that the writers were looking down on the audience as well, you guys are stupid, so we have to play this in as basic, as bare bones of a way to do it. So it's like beating you upside the head with a fish to explain what is and is not taking place. It was more subtle. It was definitely more nuanced in how the writing and those characterizations were laid out, portrayed, and even handled, which is the beauty of it. And that's where Star Trek has always had those political underpinnings. Anyone who says otherwise either didn't watch or didn't pay attention.
And with that, I think I'm gonna head out now.
Any final thoughts?
Well, I'm tired, but that's it. So, thanks for having me on, I guess, and see you next time.
All right, we'll see you next time. And what about you, Jay? Any final thoughts on how the movie stands up, how it fits in, or anything else that came to mind as you were watching it? Did we lose you, Jay?
No, I was muted.
Oh.
No, you summed up everything quite well. The only thing I find ironic about it is that at this point in Star Trek history, they're moving away from actually paying people and being a more socialist, communist society. But we don't know necessarily how the Klingons' economic system worked, per se. But you kind of get the feeling that the Federation, while it's supposed to represent the U.S. and its allies, it's also the ideal of what communism, socialism should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you are able to negate the inherent human greed that we have seen throughout history, then yes, the communist and socialist ideals and tenets that the ideology was founded upon would be viable, but it does fly in the face of a lot of that inherent greed to make sure that you yourself are taken care of first.
Mm-hmm. And I just, when I sit here and watch this particular film, that's what I watch it for everything that it is, but then always in the back of my mind, it's just like, this is supposed to be almost a one-for-one of the Cold War coming to an end. Yet the communists win in this one. It always sticks in my mind.
Well, and that's why I made sure to make it clear that it is the characterizations of where the Starfleet is supposed to be representative of the West, and the Klingons are representative of the USSR, the Soviet states of Russia at that point. And if you leave it at that sort of comparison, and it makes sense in how it was presented and played out, and how you have that older guard who literally grew up, trained, and served for long periods with that. These guys are the enemy. They're the ones we're preparing to go against. We have to make sure that we counter everything they do.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. It really ends up being that generation has the hardest time with the change, because they're going against decades and decades of training and knowledge to this sudden cataclysmic style of change that they're now faced with.
Well, just to bring it home to VTW in this, when I was on a boomer, all our, weapon system readiness tests, WSRTs, were revolving around Russia. And then after 9/11, it kind of switched more to China, but not really. It was still, you could tell it's the old Soviet Russia that we're still thinking of. And I don't know if it's changed, obviously, since I've gotten out, but it's just one of those things, how hard it was for them to let it go,
Well, there's that, and also from the surface standpoint, the majority of situations that we had presented to us during our weekly training phases underway, during our battle stations drills, it was either China or North Korea. Now, it was never directly called them, but we would hear the descriptions of the area that we were in, either being off the coast of a peninsula, Korea, or between major ports in a disputed land area, and that directly China. The only other change on the surface side would be for those who were ultimately on their way to the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean. You would, on your way, do those trainings and games for those evolutions and those geographic regions. But a lot of it was heavily geared towards China, North Korea, and Iran. Those were the big three currently, and have been for about 15 years now.
Yep.
Oh, Den Bergkamp, sci-fi golden generation was the 70s and 80s. I would even say it goes into the 90s, because you still had good Trek and other good series in the early to mid 90s. But yes, the last 20 years have been a decline of sci-fi in general. I will agree with that.
Don't forget Sequest.
First season of Sequest was really good, but then it
That's
really went downhill quick.
That's the only season. That's the only season.
Sure, we'll go with that one. But this has certainly been fun. This has been... I've been looking forward to this movie specifically since we started doing the reviews, and you can see why. It really is emotionally pulling, because it is the end of the original crew era. It was one of the last ones that was actually done really well across the board. Yes, it had its moments of what the hell are they doing, but overall, it 6 and 2. Those two are my 1 and 1A, and depending on my mood or what we're talking about will directly influence which one is number 1 and which one gets the 1A tag.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with you on that one. And then we move into the next generation, and the counting kind of holds true until you get to Nemesis.
Yeah.
You even number Star Trek, and then you get Nemesis, and you're like, it hurts.
This is true. So with that, we have been going a little over time, but this one definitely warranted it and was worth it. So what we have coming up this upcoming week, coming up on the Discord server, Tuesday we are watching an episode of The Mandalorian. Wednesday, we are watching a movie yet to be determined. Thursday, we are watching probably 2 more episodes of The Next Generation. All of that is in the running for Wednesday. That is certainly in the running. On Thursday will be a couple episodes of The Next Generation, and then Friday we have Veterans Talk Weekly right here on this channel at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and then little bit of a nice thing going on next Saturday. We won't be live here on this channel because we do the Kanar with Damar every other week, but I will be on with The Daily Atheist on his sci-fi show next Saturday, the 25th. So for those who enjoy this sort of commentary, these sort of topics, and it will be more than just Trek. Just like the next episode of Kanar with Damar, there will be a little bit of Trek, but we will be also talking about other topics from other sci-fi franchises as well. So go ahead, stick around, stay tuned, and if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, or if Jay has the soundboard ready.
I don't have that one right up, but if you give me a second.
Ring my bell to be a special subscriber.
And with that, thank you all for showing up, and we will see you on the next show.
Later, everybody.